Fine Gael, Labour and Fianna Fáil swapping back and forth the way you're approaching this whole issue of water charges, because this is indeed a Fianna Fáil proposition. Now, you asked yesterday about Sinn Féin's budget, and I sent this to you this morning, Taoiseach. I hope you've had the chance to read it.
Hold on.
It contains proposals. It contains proposals to rebuild the economy, to renew society, and to repair the damage done to the community by yourselves and by Fianna Fáil before you. And it also has a proposal, which I want to commend to you, to lift the burden of lower and middle income households by scrapping domestic water charges. And it tells you how to do this and how you would pay for it. But I want to concentrate this morning on another crisis, Taoiseach, and that's the crisis in housing. Our budget proposes the building of 6,000 new homes over the next 18 months, and tells you how this should be funded. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are 20,000 applications for housing in Dublin City Council alone. And that's an increase in 3,000 since last year. And the real number is higher, but this particular Dublin Council list, this is verified that all of these citizens have had their need for housing established by the Council. Now, more than one-third are living in overcrowded conditions or have particular medical or welfare needs. A total of 1,136 applicants are homeless here, Taoiseach, in this city, and that's repeated throughout the state. In addition to the main waiting list, 5,645 tenants are already living in social housing, but are seeking to transfer because a quarter of them are living in overcrowded conditions.
Thank you.
And others need to move out of flats because they don't have, for example, wheelchair access. Now, more than 100 of these people need to change their accommodation because of changed family circumstances. And, you know, in my own constituency, the housing list is almost 5,000. I'm finishing now, Taoiseach. Now, what is the government's plan to deal with this ongoing crisis? The ESRI have called on you to make a major investment in social housing in next week's budget instead of making the tax cuts you have been promising. Taoiseach, will you accept our proposition? If you haven't had the chance to read it, I would commend it to you. But would you accept the proposition from the ESRI to invest in social housing instead of the tax cuts that you have been proposing?
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerry Adams. So first of all, in regard to your comment on the water charges, I understand that what you are proposing is that domestic water charges should be abolished, and that this would then go back on the public pay bill. This would impose a charge of 850 million to be raised. I understand that from your submission that you've left aside something like 300 million, leaving a hole in that particular area of 550 million, which you need to explain. Now, I also understand that what you're at is that you want to increase employers' PRSI by 5%. You want to increase the top rate of income tax by 7%. That's an additional 12 percentage point of tax on jobs. I'm not sure, are you serious about this or not? Because if you are, you would drive every employer and every potential investor out of the country in terms of the creation of jobs. That would leave you, for instance, with Sinn Féin's proposition of 48% income tax rate, raising 365 million 3 years in a row, by implementing a 7% tax increase 3 times, would raise the top income tax rate to over 62%, leaving an incredible total tax rate of 73% when USC and PRSI is included. And if you want to close down the country, then that's the kind of economics that you should be proceeding with, because that's not credible and it's not real. Now, you do raise a very important issue about housing, and I want you to understand, Deputy Adams, that government will respond to this alongside the budget next week and in the time ahead here. Clearly, there's a serious supply and demand issue here, particularly in the Greater Dublin region. Clearly, the issue of homelessness, those who have been put out of apartments and houses because of rent increases, and the demand for housing is now a demand that is rising very rapidly, and obviously is a cause of great concern. The recently published planning bill being dealt with by the Minister for the Environment provides for a vacant site 3% levy to encourage development, a new Part 5 to deliver 4,000 additional units by 2020, changes to development contributions, and the use it or lose it approach to planning permissions. These are all, if you like, designed to to make an impact on the construction sector. You know that contractors will not build houses unless it's profitable for them to do so, and government are acutely aware of the fact that you need an income stream for contractors to build, an income stream for buyers to purchase, and a planning process in place to allow for that to happen. There are many thousands of houses for which planning permission has been approved under the old regulations, some of them in the wrong place. But we look at the incentives that might be brought in to make an impact on how this can happen. In respect to social housing, government will publish very shortly a 5-year social housing strategy, which is a key commitment of the Construction Sector 2020 document that we published. The need for social housing based on last year's assessment is very well documented and accepted by everybody. The Housing Agency has admitted that to meet housing need over the next 5 years, you need 35,000 housing units to be provided, and the government's challenge is to meet social housing need in an innovative and a cost-effective manner. Now, the ESRI have put forward their view, as so many others have as well. Government have to make a decision on this, and clearly the strategy being finalised will take into account Budget 2015 and will be published by Minister Kelly very shortly after the budget. We're acutely conscious of it, Deputy Adams, as are the people out there who are looking for housing, who are the people who will be accommodated in social housing. And government will produce its specific strategy and plan alongside the budget in the very near future, taking into account all of these very valid submissions.
Deputy Adams, 1 minute, thank you.
Well, we made a very valid submission, Taoiseach, and you misrepresented entirely, quite deliberately and maliciously in what you said. And furthermore, let me tell you that all of our propositions have been costed. Now, you mightn't like them because you, of course, think that the people should serve the economy, whereas we believe in this side in a Republican vision where the economy serves the people. And that means those people who are most in need. And I raise the issue of housing, not to indulge in your Walter Mitty type of approach to these serious propositions, but to bring to your attention that there is a huge housing crisis out there. There are 89,000 households in housing need. Now, there are also 76,000 families in receipt of rent supplement. So riddle me this, Taoiseach. The state, by failing to house these families, it costs €30 million in emergency accommodation. It's your brand of economics. Yep. We spend €500 million in subsidising private rents annually.
Thank you.
And who are the rent racketeers? Who are the landlords? Does cronyism have anything to do with the failure of this government to put in rent controls, because you have refused to put in rent controls? Now, the cost of renting has risen by over a quarter in Dublin alone. The average rent for accommodation in this city is over €900 a month. This is the reality, Taoiseach. Now, when we bring forward propositions, you mightn't like them. You might disagree with them. You might want to take issue with them, but please at least give them the serious consideration that we put on behalf of those we represent and others who we do not represent, and putting this forward. So, you didn't answer my question, which is, this isn't a Sinn Féin proposition, will you heed the call of the ESRI to move away from tax cuts and to invest in social housing? Will you accept their proposition, and will you send a very, very clear indication to those families in need that you will do that?
Thank you.
I accept the principle referred to by the ESRI, as many others, that there is a need to meet a social housing demand. Clearly, this is an issue that government itself have reflected upon in terms of Construction 2020, of the new planning bill, of the issues that are out there in terms of Part 5, incentivising contractors and builders to be able to get back to business of providing houses. We hope that there'll be 5,000 homes added to the social housing stock this year. For your information, government did make available 68 million to the local authorities
as a
construction initiative. That funding will restart the local housing authority scheme directly, direct build to local authorities, 68 million. We put forward 15 million to restore up to 1,800 vacant units, particularly here in Dublin, designed to reduce pressure on the housing list. There is no reason why many of these units have been boarded up for years when they could be made very comfortable, warm and homes for people to live in. The 68 million injection to the local authorities of Cancola will provide almost 500 homes over the next 2 years. They've got to be built. So that's the 35 million was also brought forward this year for people who live in a home with who have a disability, people without a home and the elderly. There's been a 30 million investment this year in 2014 to improve the energy efficiency of local authority housing, and a 10 million fund this year to kick-start resolution on the remaining unfinished housing developments. Now, NAMA and the government will respond in parallel to the question of social housing.
The answer is no.
The issue raised by many other housing agencies is very clear. There's a real demand here. No matter who you are, even you in government would have to have contractors and builders provide blocks, foundations and houses. It takes time to build them. You with your fantasy economics cannot put these houses of blocks and concrete on the ground just like that. So we will deal with it next week and the week after.
Deputy Murphy, thank you.
Taoiseach, yesterday, former Minister O'Dowd expressed a view